got your Bibles, let's open them up. Chapter 5, we've got tons to do this morning, and there'll be 3 sessions, and we're just going to have to fly. In this, Jeff did a great job of opening us up. 20% of the book of Song of Solomon is over conflict, and that's pretty profound. That 20% of this book on attraction and sex and marriage and it has to do with conflict. I think the only people who don't realize that marriage is going to have difficulties and have a lot of conflict in it are engaged people. They're the only people that I know that aren't aware that this is coming. I think in that blissful state, there's a little bit of the inability to see. So they think they're going to be the ones that survive it. And so we're going to just dive right in for time's sake. And we're going to see real quick, right after what was really a beautiful chapter in the Bible, things start to go a little weird and get there pretty quick. So let's look at this. You've got the honeymoon. You had the attraction stage. You had the honeymoon stage. And now there's going to be a little bit of disillusionment here. So let's pick it up in 5 verse 2. 5 verse 2. Here's what she says. I slept, but my heart was awake. A sound. My beloved is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my perfect one. For my head is wet with dew, my locks with the drops of the night. Okay, so let me try to explain what's happened here. He has been, we know this from this phrase that his head is wet with the dew. We know he's been working all day long, all right? So Solomon, he's been out in the field, he's been working, it's gotten late. So he left early that morning. It's gotten late enough that you'll find it here in a second. She's already in bed. She's taken the shower, she's taken off the clothes, she's put on her nightie, and she's in bed. Not only is she in bed, but she's asleep, all right, when he gets home. Now, he's coming home from the field, and I can just imagine this. On his way in, he starts thinking about his girl. On his way home, he's thinking about those eyes like the dove. He starts thinking about the fawns. Are you tracking with me? All right? He's like, man, those little gentle fawns, I will gently. All right? I mean, he's working in his mind. You can see this as he knocks on the door. Now, here's going to be rule number 1 for this talk in terms of conflict. All frustration is birthed out of unmet expectation. All right? Because he has built this thing in his mind that he's going to walk in the door and there she's going to be. And the second she sees him, they're going to run and embrace and they're going to drink some wine. You tracking with what I'm talking about there? He's got in his mind that he's walking in the door at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and he's going to take a shower and then they're, So, let's look at what happens here though. Verse 3, she responds to this, all right? I had put off my garment. How could I put it on? I have bathed my feet. How could I soil them? What'd she just do? Not tonight, baby. It ain't happening tonight. Listen, I have already done this. I have washed my feet. I'm a little confused on that one. I think it's a cultural thing. I'm in bed. This ain't happening. I got a headache. I've got a headache. This isn't happening tonight. This isn't happening tonight. Now, I want you to watch his response because there's going to be a couple of things that work real well for us here. One is something that you see that's correct, and the other one, especially in terms of conflict, and then the other one is I don't think correct, but sometimes necessary. So he comes to the door. There's all this expectation about what's about to occur, and she shuts it down. I mean, she kills it. She kills it in a second. But watch his response. Look at verse 4. My beloved put his hand to the latch, and my heart was thrilled within me. I arose to open my beloved, and my hands dripped with mirth, my fingers with liquid mirth on the handles of the bolt. I opened to my beloved, but my beloved had turned and gone, and my soul failed me when he spoke. I sought him, but found him not. I called him, but he gave no answer. Here's what happened. She shuts the thing down. He does not get angry. He does not react. He does not blow up. And what we find out is by him reaching in and touching the lap, that's kind of like a Valentine in this culture. That is, I love you anyway. I still love you anyway. But we're learning here, although he is saying what is correct, his heart is not exactly there because he is frustrated, all right? He's frustrated enough that he's left, all right? He's not coming in. He's not getting in the bed with her. He's not. And so she realizes that he said, I loved you. I still love you, but he's not in there with her. And so she bolts out of bed and she throws on the robe and she goes looking for him. She can't find him. She can't find him anywhere. And so I think one of the first things we're learning out of the gate is that there are going to be frustrations, there's going to be problems, there's going to be fights. And one of the rules we're seeing right out of the gate is we got to be careful not to react to those things. We've got to be careful. I mean, he didn't just blow up and talk about how she doesn't respect him or she doesn't love him or what happened to our love or what. I mean, none of that happens. He goes, okay, I get it. I love you. And then he takes his frustration elsewhere. He takes his frustration elsewhere, although I don't know he's right for that. We'll get to it. I think in conflict, you got to be very careful not to react. You got to be careful. Usually conflict occurs because there's unmet expectation or pride has got involved. And the problem with pride is pride will make you see things that aren't there, that they're not there. Pride will make you see what's not reality. And I think I quoted this last night, but if you'll go read Mary's Magnificat, her little song when she goes and visits Elizabeth, she says that God will turn the proud over to the imagination of their hearts. I've always thought that was such a profound verse because what she's saying there is the pride don't see well. They see the wrong thing. So they'll take, this poor woman's been working at the house all day, went to bed at 11 o'clock at night, probably waiting up for him and finally just couldn't wait up for him anymore, got in the bed exhausted, and now he comes in, making the move, and she's not hating him or disliking him. She's like, man, I am tired. Literally. That's not code. That's not code for I hate you and you're a bad man. It's just that I'm tired. But what happens when pride checks in is then all of a sudden he'll take that and go, and we'll talk more about this at length, but he'll begin to think through all the great things he does and is and all the crappy things she's done and is, because one of the telltale signs of pride is you'll compare your strengths to your spouse's weaknesses. You'll list all the things that you're good at and compare them to all the things your wife's not good at. Now, if you would take your weak things and lay it next to her weak things, you'd find out you're just as much of a dill hole. But that's not what happens when pride enters the room. When pride enters in the room, it's all of a sudden, these are the things I excel at. These are the things she's horrible at. See how good of a man I am? She's lucky to have me. It's one of the things that ends up happening. All right? So now watch this, because there's some really profound things here, specifically though, for how conflict works itself out in the end. Here we go. The watchmen found me as they went in the city, all right? They beat me, they bruised me, they took away my veil, those watchmen of the walls. Now, there's not a physical beating that's delivered to the queen by the watchman as she looks for the king. In any era, a really good way to get killed is to beat up the queen, all right? You pick a time period. A good way to get yourself hung, head cut off, or worse, is to smack the queen in the middle of the night as she looks for the king. So I don't think there's this literal beating being applied to the queen here. I think what's happening is she's running about looking for the king because she knows she's heard him, and so she's looking around for him, and they don't know where he is. So every time they go, we haven't seen him. Isn't he with you? That it bruises her soul. It bruises her soul. All right. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, if you find my beloved, will you tell him that I am sick with love? Now, there's something happening here, and we're going to find out what Solomon's doing during this time. There's something happening to our queen's heart here that I think is profound. She's gone from being unresponsive and cold to the advances of her man to now running through the castle looking for him, saying that I'm sick with love. I need to find him. I need to grab him. Something's going on here in her heart. God is doing something in her heart. It was not Solomon that's done it. Solomon didn't say anything. He didn't do it. He just says, I love you. And he went, who knows where he went? Maybe he went to the kitchen. Maybe he's watching Sports Center in the West Wing. We don't know where he is. But he hasn't done anything to change her heart. Her heart is being changed, all right, by God. Now, let me tell you why this is profound. Because way too many men and even more women want to use common sense, arguments and manipulation to change the way their spouse feels or responds towards them. And this is going to be absolutely devastating in the end. All right? And so what ends up happening is maybe jabs are thrown, or we wound each other deeply, or we play some kind of game in order to get our spouse to do what we want. Solomon has not played those games. He has simply said, I love you anyway, and then he's walked away. We're going to find out in a little while. He's in the garden with the Lord crying out. But God's changing her heart. God is changing her heart. And let me throw this out there to the men. Like almost the majority of books written on marriage are on best practices, all right? And what I mean by that is they'll give you general rules that should work if both of you are healthy emotionally and spiritually, but if you're not, they don't matter. And so what ends up happening is men and women both get frustrated because they read these books, and a guy will read it and go, oh, okay, so if I do the dishes and vacuum the floor, she'll be real responsive to me. And so they do the dishes. I mean, I've even been in marriage conferences where guys have gone, you know what my wife thinks is sexy? Vacuuming. By vacuum, she's all over me like a hyena, you know? And then, so what ends up happening, everybody goes home like, in their drawers, all right? Where are you, baby? And then when she is unresponsive to us vacuuming in our drawers, we get angry. And women, the women are told, if you do this, if you do this, if you do this, he'll do this. And then they do those things, and the man doesn't do that, and it makes us angry. So then on top of frustration, we get anger and bitterness. All right? And so my frustration about all best practice kind of stuff. If it doesn't address the heart, it doesn't go anywhere. Now, we've been called by God as husbands to love our wife like Christ loved the church. And that means we love her regardless of her response to those things. It's the hardest thing in marriage, by far. By far. Because as men, we want to love to get something in return. All right? Not just always sex. I mean, it can be all sorts of things. But we love to get in return. Jesus goes, no, you don't get to love her that way. You love her regardless of how she responds. Regardless of how she responds. And here's what I want to tell you just right out of the gate. To the men, you cannot be romantic enough. You cannot be sweet enough. You cannot help around the house enough. You cannot, and I could go on and on with all the things they tell you going to make your wife a sexual predator on you, all right? You can do all of those things, but in the end, only the Holy Spirit of God can change your wife's heart. So we love, we encourage, we lead our home, and repeatedly we turn our wife over to Christ. Because he can change her heart. He can move in her. He can do things that we can't. All right? And the same is true for you women. You can have all the sex that your man wants with him. You can buy the right kind of this. You can do the right kind of this. You're not going to be able to change your man's heart. You do not possess that power. Only Christ can. And that's what we're seeing is happening here. Her heart is being transformed and changed and stirred up towards her husband, where just a few hours, maybe even not that long, just a little while ago, she wasn't at all. She was indifferent because she was tired. All right? Now, let's watch what happens next. Let's watch what happens next. Verse 9. Actually, let's go 10. We're going to look at this transformation occurring. My beloved is radiant and ruddy. I love that. I don't know what it means, but I like it. Distinguished among 10,000. Now watch this. This was a woman. I want to keep this in mind. This is a woman that 20 minutes ago were like, don't touch me. Don't touch me. All right? 20, 30 minutes ago was like, don't touch me. Now watch this. His head is the finest gold. His locks are wavy, black as a raven. His eyes are like doves. Oh, there's that phrase again, huh? Beside streams of water bathed in milk. Once again, I have no idea what that means, but I like to read it. His eyes are like doves beside streams of water bathed in milk, sitting beside a full pool. His cheeks are like beds of spices, mounds of sweet-smelling herbs. Herbs is the word there. I said herbs. I apologize. I do have a graduate level degree. His lips are lilies dripping with liquid mirth. His arms are like rods of gold set with jewels. I have Lauren quote that to me all the time. His body is polished ivory bedecked with sapphires. His legs are alabaster columns set on bases of gold. His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as the cedars. His mouth is most sweet. He is altogether desirable. This is my beloved, and this is my friend. O daughters of Jerusalem, something's changed. Something's changed here. Something's gone from not tonight, dear, to your arms are like rods of gold. Correct? Yeah. So something's happened here, and it wasn't Solomon that brought it about. All right? God moved. God worked her in the deep parts of her heart. God began to change her affections for this man. Look at verse 6. Or chapter 6. Where has your beloved gone, O most beautiful among women? Where has your beloved turned that we may seek him with you? Now listen to verse 2. She knows where he is. My beloved has gone down to his garden, to the beds of spices, to graze in the gardens and to gather lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine, and he grazes among the lilies. He has gone to, this isn't dualistic in meaning. He's gone to his garden, man. That's where he's gone. She knows where he would go in a moment like this. He's gone to his garden. He's in there. He's praying. He's crying out. He's trying to, I mean, if I had to guess here, he's probably trying to wrestle through his frustration. He probably knows his frustration isn't valid, and he's trying to wrestle through it. Now, she's going to show up. She's going to show up, and they're going to begin to talk through this thing. And what we can do is we can read the response, and I can go back. But what I'd like to tell you, I'd like to take a break from the text and just give you some simple rules, both about talking and what to do and not to do while you're talking, and then how to listen when conflict occurs. And so I'm going to do that, and then we'll read through the conversation they have, and I'll be able to point out to you how these things occurred. All right, so let me give you 10 nevers of communication, as in 10 don't ever do these things, all right? These are nevers in communication, specifically when there's conflict, all right? Never speak rashly to your mate, all right? Never speak rashly. And what I mean by that is going to be these seasons where you have to breathe in lest you say something that's just completely crazy. I mean, just completely insane. Never speak rashly. Slow down. Breathe. Think through what you're saying. Never speak rashly. Never touch your mate in anger. Never. Never touch your mate in anger. Never embarrass your mate publicly. You ever been at that table when that's happened? Just made the whole thing awkward? Yeah, never publicly embarrass your mate. And for the record, I think this is a general rule even if you're not fighting. There's nothing sadder than watching a man get emasculated at dinner. And there's nothing more heartbreaking than watching a man throw jabs at his wife at dinner. Yeah, don't embarrass your mate publicly. Never argue in front of your kids or use the kids to win an argument. I come from a home that had some massive issues in it, and we'll talk about that in the last session. What happens when two sinful people move in together? Bliss, usually. And so I have if I'm going to err, I'm going to err on the other side than what my parents erred at. And I can tell you 10 years of being with Lauren, and we've never yelled at each other. I mean, I'm not saying, all right, we've had plenty of the, don't ever do that again. All right, we've had tons of that. Tons of it. An unbelievable amount of that. But we don't scream at each other. And it's funny that even, like, sometimes we'll play around, just in the car, we'll play around, and she'll, I have directional issues. All right? And what I mean by that is people who give directions usually make me angry because they're like, go east on 35. I'm like, go east? Do I have a compass? Who am I, Davy Crockett? Why don't you tell me to take a left? Take a left. That's what you do. Well, I mean, who knows that? Who can go, east, all right? I mean, but there are people that can. There are people who see the world that way, and I hate them, all right? I hate those people, and especially the directions they give. Go north at 3 clicks. You're like, what? You serious? How about make a right on Johnson Street? How about that? That helps. So my wife, who is directionally a freak show, all right? She's just my own little GPS device. And so in the car every once in a while, she'll go, no, that way. And I'll go like, woman, do not do that all right? And it's funny that even my daughter, who's 4 now, will go, Dad, you shouldn't talk like that to Mom. So I pull over and spank her. You know, she doesn't talk to me that. No, I'm kidding. You just don't. You don't. Listen, we're all going to have issues. We're all going to have to break through it. We're all going to have to. But I'm just promising you this. You are teaching your children how to fight. You're teaching them. And you can flower it up and make it as pretty as you want to make yourself feel better about it, but you're teaching your children how to fight. You're teaching them how to treat their spouse. You're teaching them how to treat the opposite sex. All of these things are occurring in the relationship you have with your spouse. All right? So don't fight in front of your kids. Don't fight in front of your kids. Or what I would say is watch how you fight in front of your kids. Be careful how you fight in front of your kids. And never use them to win the argument. Never use them to win the argument. All right? Never mention the in-laws or any other family member. And this is where when you fight, things get really crazy. Because they go from one thing that's the actual deal, if you can even get to the actual deal. Like I learned, I was laughing at, I was laughing at Jeff's little deal up here because it's just so true that, you know, in my house growing up, you know, you just put the towel on the floor and Mom came by and got it. And then she washed it and folded it and put it back in the deal. But when I got married, Lauren would be like, what's that? Like, are you serious? It's a towel. I'm gone. You know, I mean, peace, I'm out. But that's not, I mean, what she's saying is, okay, so I'm coming from this family background where this is how we do it. She's coming from the family background, this is how you do it. Now, in the end, the issue is not even the towel. The issue is, do you respect me? The issue is, and so, you know, if you don't even get to that, then what ends up happening is a towel turns into a full-on assault on family systems. I heard a great comedian one time say, you know, women can say these things are like ninjas in your brain. They'll kill you for the next 3 months. I mean, you know, just like, well, I guess you're just dumb like your father. And then, you know, for the next 3 months, you're like, dumb like my father. Like my father. I'm dumb like my father. My father's a brilliant man, all right? Before you know it, you're having this huge fight that started with a towel, all right? Keep the issue on what the issue is. You don't need to bring anyone else into the equation here. Keep it on what it is. There's no doubt, all right?